I am always amazed that so many of you are willing to do this amidst a pandemic, that you're willing to take that risk. And some people think that the whole thing's a fraud and there's no risk at all, but I don't. I think there's a virus out there. I don't think it's in this room. But if it is, we're doing what we can to mitigate the possibility of infection, and I think we're doing it well. So thank you for playing along with this. Someday it will end. I don't know when. And Devon and I were actually having a conversation this morning about the fact that this whole pandemic thing is getting a little tedious. You know? I mean, some people seem to be enjoying it. They get to stay home and do what they like to do, which apparently is not much at all. But that's fine. That's all right. You know, whatever works for everybody. That's great. I haven't had that kind of experience. So what I want to talk about today is the idea that if our focus goes toward things about what's going on in the world that work for us, or at least that we're aware of, perhaps this won't be continue to be as challenging as it has been. And of course, I'm looking at it from my perspective. If that's not true for you, if your life is just hunky-dory and everything is perfect and wonderful and lovely and just the way you'd like it to be, God bless you. More power to you. I, on the other hand, have find that there's some challenges involved. So what I did was some research this week to look at this and see what we can learn about it. But before I go there, I want to talk about this idea of how it is our natural tendency, at least for most of us, when something's not going well, to immediately look around and try to find somebody to blame. It just seems to be this natural state of human beings. Ow, who did this to me? And you could play the game with this pandemic thing. You could say it's China's fault. I don't know if that's going to hurt a single person in China. You could say it's the government's fault, that there were miscalculations and errors. And, in our lifetime, there really hasn't been anything like this. We can look in history and see that at the beginning of the 20th century, there was one of these, about 100 years ago, and how devastating that was. Those people didn't have the internet. It took a while for them to even figure out what was going on. So we are inundated with information, which means that we know everything that's happening pretty much as it happens. They didn't have that. But blaming the government or anyone else for this, I think, is a waste of your energy. It's kind of like playing small. It's being in that place that doesn't allow you to really expand and have that joyous experience of life. I have never met anyone who claims to have this abundant, wonderful life and are miserable at the same time. So being miserable, being in pain, which I don't deny anybody's right to have pain, because pain can actually be a useful tool. But the idea of suffering, let's call it that, suffering is not something we want to do. My Native American teacher describes suffering as having pain and not knowing when it's going to end. You could say that about this pandemic. We don't know when it's going to end. We keep hearing wonderful reports that they're in the third phase of trials on vaccines, but we don't know. Vaccines have looked good at times in our past and not worked out well at all. And other ones have worked perfectly. So perhaps if you do treatment work, you might want to include that the vaccines that come forward actually do prevent the infection of this virus from getting to any of us, which would be a great place to be. So here's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about this idea that there really are some silver linings going on. You know what I mean by silver linings, right? Clouds. Usually storm clouds. Dark clouds are the ones that have the silver lining. Now, the elements of this, I think, are a great metaphor for where we are right now. Because one thing about clouds is they don't last. They don't stick around that long at all. They either rain themselves out or they float over top of us and they go away. And while those clouds are in this ominous presence in our life, even in the midst of rainstorms with thunder and lightning and all of that, there's still a sun shining. That sun is always shining. It is always shining. Just because the cloud is over us at a moment doesn't mean the sun went away. It's always there. And it's, as I say, it's a metaphor. It's a metaphor for our spiritual nature. Spirit is always where we are, no matter what's going on. And if there's a storm brewing, that doesn't mean that God left. It means that we may have forgotten for the moment. Sort of like we forget about sunshine when the thunder and lightning and the winds and rains show up. We forget about that for a little while. But it's there. It never went away. And that silver lining is like a reminder that it's still there. It's always there. So let me give you some examples of what I mean by silver lining in the midst of this pandemic. I think the most obvious one has been with our healthcare workers. These kind of guys. So many of them are working ridiculous hours, long shifts. They're exposing themselves to this disease, to this virus, and frankly, quite a number of them have died when they get it from their working with people that have it in the hospital. We were really blessed with two of our practitioners that got it. One of them got it in the facility where she was the clinical director, and she brought it home and gave it to her partner. Now, neither one of them wanted it, and Dee told me that when she was at work, she had to shower when she showed up. She had to shower when she left. She had to wear all this garb. There was nothing showing. She had masks and shields and gloves and gowns and all this stuff, and still she got it. It's a pesky little thing. But fortunately, our practitioners got right on it and treated them through it. And even though one of them actually had to spend a couple days in the hospital, they got through it and they're fine now. In fact, they're with Dee's mom this weekend. She's going into hospice tomorrow. So Dee wanted to be with her, and so they made that happen. And I'm really glad for them to be able to be there with her. So, healthcare workers. Now, I don't want to canonize these people. Let's not make them saints. But they are amazing in what they've been able to do. All of them? I don't know. I suppose there's still some nurse ratchets out there. People remember that movie. But all in all, as a group, I got to say they're pretty amazing, and I'm very grateful for them. They have been a silver lining. My awareness of the good work they do has certainly been uplifted by this process. Stimulus money. Now, some could say, all this debt that we're incurring is a bad thing. But right now, to a great degree, I'm not asking you whether you've received any stimulus money, but all this money that has come into our economy, sort of created out of nothingness, has really helped. It's helped us, those of us that have it, that got it, or receiving it, with meeting obligations. It's been a real blessing. So I don't know what your politics are, and right now I really don't care. But it seems to me that this has been a silver lining. Most time through history, government would say, wow, I hope you all make it all right out there. We're just going to take care of ourselves. I heard that I probably shouldn't say this. I heard that the Minneapolis City Council actually defunded their police program, and then the next business they took up was hiring private security for the members of the council. We're finding our way through this. We're figuring out how to do the things that we're trying to do right now. It's not all pretty. It's not all working. One of the members of the White House task force on this virus admitted outright that he told people not to wear masks for fear there wouldn't be enough for nurses. I guess there's some logic to that, but now there's so many masks, it's not a problem. You can get a mask anywhere. They're everywhere. It's wonderful. Stimulus bill. Yes, having money in the economy has helped through these weeks and months of dealing with this, with as many businesses have been down and jobs have been lost. Anybody have the word repurposing in your lexicon until the last few months? It wasn't a really big common word, but now it's everything. And I have some thoughts on that. Yeah, it's over here. Liquor distillers like Bacardi and perfume manufacturers like Christian Dior have repurposed their facilities to produce hand sanitizer. Out of nowhere, they're making hand sanitizer. It's pretty brilliant. I wonder if they're putting them out in Bacardi bottles. I don't know. Several industrial companies like 3M, Apple, Nike, Ralph Lauren, Ford, and Tesla, one of my favorite companies, continue to make hygienic masks, face shields, respirators, and ventilators at a record pace. It's not normal in American industry for a company that makes one thing to suddenly set that down and reconfigure their operation to make something else. It's a wartime thing. That's the last time we as a country saw it, was at the beginning of World War II. But it's fascinating how quickly this happened. Even in World War II, it took 6 months before anything came out of a factory that was repurposed. This happened in weeks, in very few weeks. Quite amazing. Extraordinary work. Here's something, I don't know that if many of you have heard about this, but several major banks, and I'll name two, Bank of America and First Bank, which is our bank, are refunding overdraft fees, deferring mortgage payments, issuing refunds for late fees, and suspending foreclosures, evictions, and repossessions through this thing. That's not normal for banks to do that. That's pretty extraordinary that they're willing to do that. Also, several major insurance companies are deferring premium payments, and some of them are actually sending everyone of their insured a check during this time. Anybody ever heard of getting money back from your insurance company when it wasn't due to you? It's amazing. I mean, it's a real statement about who we are as a society, that these major, and here's what we always hear, all they're in it is for the money. All they want is the money. Maybe not. Maybe there's some humanity going on. It's certainly an interesting thought. Cable providers, I don't know if all of them, but certainly a number of them, are offering free Wi-Fi to any home that has a student who is displaced from classes so they can meet with their teachers. Cable companies are giving away free cable. I remember when it was a big, bad, evil thing if you tried to get cable without paying for it. Now they're giving it away. Fantastic. I like this one. Anybody ever ridden Uber? I have. Uber has provided 10 million free rides and food delivery to healthcare workers, seniors, and others in need across the world. That was 10 million free rides. Uber Eats, which is their food delivery service, is providing 300,000 free meals to first responders and healthcare workers. That's a relatively new company. And they've had their problems with image problems, but the fact that they're doing that says a lot about who they are. These are the people that are around us in our communities, that are willing to actually sacrifice their profits for the betterment of what we're going through. And the last one's just really about people, about how neighbors are helping neighbors, about how people are reaching out to people they don't even know, offering to shop for people, performing wellness checks, dropping off supplies and prepared food, and generally looking out for one another. This thing is actually bringing us closer. While we learn about social distancing, we're learning about supporting people around us, stepping out of our way to do that. This is not normal. This is maybe the new normal. Wouldn't it be nice if it is? Now, that's one element, these of silver linings. The other is that I think when this thing started, when we first came back into this room, and when a federal judge decided that our governor didn't have the right to do this, to keep churches closed. You know what they used to justify that? The separation of church and state. You've all heard of that, right? Do you know that that's not in the Constitution? It's not in the Declaration of Independence. It's not a law anywhere. It actually came from a letter that Thomas Jefferson wrote back around the turn of the 19th century. And because of that, lawmakers and judicial people use that as though it were absolutely solid law. Yet, it doesn't have any foundation other than a letter that Thomas Jefferson wrote. And in the middle of that, in writing that and providing that, we have the benefit of being able to come together. Not everybody's being socially conscious about this. I think we're doing a great job of it. But where we're going with this is that because most communities for a long time couldn't get together, and because other businesses couldn't come into the same room, people couldn't come to the same room, what we found is this idea of communicating globally or communicating by means of the internet has expanded widely. Now, we had that before. Skype's been around for a few years. Even Zoom's been around for a few years. But they're actually getting better at what they do, and they're providing more and more services as they do it, which means that a lot of things that people have always gone to be together, we're now going to do online. Certainly this community did it. We did online for several weeks until we got the go to come back into the room. And our recordings of today will be up this afternoon so that everybody that's at home that isn't ready to come into the room, and I have no judgment on a single person for not being ready to come in the room. I'm just really glad that you're here. But for those that won't, by 3 o'clock this afternoon, they're going to be able to see what we saw today and experience that and appreciate it and use it for their spiritual well-being. So this is a real gift that's happening. Let's see. Students are able to have short check-ins with their teachers. So if a class has 25 kids in it, teacher is checking in with each of them online, giving them some personal tutoring and support coaching on whatever it is that their assignments are. This is a new way of teaching. This may stick around. This may not be the old way. This may be the new way. Doctor's visits. Anybody seen their doctor on a computer screen or on a phone screen? Yeah, that's sort of. If you don't need to be examined by the doctor, the way it works now is you go in and you get your blood taken, and the next week you meet with your doctor on your phone, and he tells you how you're doing, or she tells you how you're doing. It's quite amazing. Now, what that does is saves you the trip to go see the doctor, to sit in the waiting room for surely at least a half hour, and it really keeps the doctor on pace too. I've found that when you wait all that time in the waiting room, you don't seem to be waiting on these online calls. You get to see the doctor, and they get to see you, and you get your information, and I don't know what the difference is, other than there's no touchy-feely stuff, which is okay by me. So that's something that's happening that really could be a permanent change in how we see doctors. There are actually industries that are thriving with COVID-19. Are you aware of that? Let's see, the ones that I found really easy. I could have done deeper search on this, but I found 3 so fast I just let it be. Food delivery services are doing great work. And they're just leaving it at your door. You leave your tip on your credit card when you make your order, and they just leave it on your door. They deliver it with a mask and gloves. Nobody's touching it, and you don't have to be in contact with anybody to get your food. Home entertainment is expanding greatly. Yes, you could watch movies and lots of channels all along, but the quality of what's out there is actually increasing because the focus now is not in theaters, it's in your home. So the work there is actually expanding. And the last one may be a surprise to you. The pleasure boat industry is going crazy. People are buying boats. Why are they buying boats? Because you can get your family on a boat away from everybody else. I know. So they're already backlogged on boats for like a year with all the boats out there. So boats, we should have kept our boat a little longer. Maybe we would have got a better price, eh? But it's like this business is going crazy. And I'm sure there are lots of other ones. I just didn't take the time to research any more than that. Pollution's down. Are you aware of that? It is severely down. It is really down. Here's a picture of one of the canals in Venice, Italy. Look how clean that water is. That hasn't been clean like that for 100 years. That's amazing. Clean water in Venice. The estimates are with the lower amount of pollution in China, the estimates are that as many as 77,000 lives may have been saved by not having that pollution in the air. In New York City, carbon monoxide is down 50%. And here's the big one. You can actually see the sun in Los Angeles. Anybody been to Los Angeles in the last few years? You can't see the sun. It's a haze all the time over that city. But it's gone. Wow. Totally new stuff. So pollution's gone. And that's the end of that page. So now I have you I want to end this with some predictions about things that may actually be changing and may stay changed as we go through this. Instead of handshakes and hugs, I know you huggers are not going to want to hear this, more elbow taps and fist bumps. It's going to become the common thing, at least in business, because there's less germs passed that way. I know. We've been doing that for generations and generations, probably 1,000 years, hugging people, probably 2,000 years, probably longer than that. But it seems that right now, and will it last? I don't know. But for right now, it seems to be a movement toward fist bumps and elbow taps. Group meetings that have been conventions, that have been trade shows, that have been conferences or job fairs or these kinds of things are all going to go online for a while. And it's not that we don't need to be with each other, we do. But for right now, it seems that that's going to be the easier way to do this. So what does that mean? That means if you're going to one of these things, you're not going to spend the money to travel there. You're not going to have the hotel. You're not going to have the eating expense. You're just going to be sitting at a chair in your home or your office for hours at a time. But for right now, that seems to be the safer thing to do. Our organization has already changed to doing a virtual convention every other year. So there's 1 year we're together and 1 year we're virtual. I don't know if that'll stay or if it'll change, but that's where we've been for the last few years. Working at home. It seems there's going to be a great deal more of that. How many of you all work at home now? Okay, just a few. My guess is that more and more people, or the predictions are, that more and more people are going to work at home. Why is that? It's because working at home, it's called teleworking, is actually more productive. Let's see, yeah, maybe. But they're suggested that it's more productive and that employers or employees tend to be happier and have a greater sense of well-being if they're working at home. Now, it's not that people are going to go home and say they're working and not work. That's not going to happen, because you see how it works now is that an employer can check your computer and know if it's on or not. Now, they may not know exactly what you're doing on the computer, but they can check in and know if you signed into the websites that you work from and that kind of stuff. So it's not like it's just a freewheeling thing. And there'll be less commuting, which means less gas will be spent, less eating out, and less childcare expense. We'll see. Also, there's a good likelihood that all this glut of office space that will occur from this will likely be turned into residences. Okay, that could work. Because we're working through this. We're finding our way with this. We're seeing what it is to be seen and known in the midst of a changing world. The world is changing. And that may be just the tip of the iceberg of some of the changes that will happen. But I wanted to give you a sense of that. Why did I want to do that? Because when we can see the good in something, it's more palatable for us. And when we have a sense of how it could be different, it's less scary, because what's scary is always the unknown. So I want to invite this just to kind of wash over you, give you a thought, and maybe you can use some of what you've seen today to find yourself in a happier world. Because you create your world, you create your state. You create your affect. Nobody does that for you. So rather than looking around for someone to blame that life is a little hard right now, that it's unpredictable, that it's not the way we hoped it would be, perhaps everything's okay. Perhaps we'll get through this. We'll have a vaccine someday before too awful long. And we'll put all the chairs back in here and we'll sit shoulder to shoulder and be absolutely fine. That's what I'm predicting. And that's what I see in your life, joy and happiness and all good things, because all things are God. So let's close this with a treatment. And as we are aware of the presence and the power of the One, we simply allow that awareness to dictate our affairs. We allow that awareness to be the guiding light of our lives, knowing that we get to say it's okay, and it's okay. We get to be happy, and happiness is the order of the day. We get to live the full, rich lives, even in the midst of a pandemic. Because the truth remains, and always will, that God is all there is. And that high understanding of life allows us to remember and to live in the joy and the peace and the beauty of life with everything that we do. So I claim that for all of us, right here and right now. I claim it in gratitude. I claim it in love. And this is the truth. With absolute certainty that it's so, I let it be. And so it is. I love you all very much. Thank you.